All right, great. Cool. So basically today what we're going to do is, so I was going to go Excel and then more accounting practice, but since every sector director wanted me to talk about PowerPoint, we're also doing that. So why don't we, so actually we could just start off on Excel because that's arguably the more important tool you have to use. And this should just be a super basic tutorial just to speed things up. There's definitely Excel courses for you if you get into investment banking or another finance role, and then you could take courses to really learn how to use Excel. But honestly, most of the things I learned from that course I will never ever use. So this is probably all that is needed for now. Cool. So before we go into everything, all of these are just the super basics you need to know. The things I sent out, there will be they will have more information on them on other functions, other shortcuts. But essentially, will seem pretty boring, but it's pretty important actually if you don't want to stay up till 3 a.m. every night on the job. Cool. So first, before we get into shortcuts, there's two types of shortcuts. So there's the control, ones where you start with control, and then there's ones where you start with alt. So normally with control, you want to press control in whatever thing it is at the same time. So for example, like over there, everything is kind of have plus. You want to do at the same time if you see a plus. And if you see things in sequence, then that means you want to press them like simultaneously, or not in succession. So basically, the Excel sheet has a few different components. Yours is probably green. I have gray because it's better for your eyes. And normally this would also be gray, but because this is Ed Series, I made it white so you can see better. But at night, I like to keep it gray because it's better for the eyes. Or it might just be everyone at work this summer did it, and I want to seem cool, but I don't know if it's actually better for the eyes. So before, just a bit of background. So if you press Alt, for example, you can see that those numbers appear. I don't know what it is on Mac. Anyone I know? Is there an Alt on Mac? Is there an option? I think option is the key. Cool. Cool. So you have option, and basically what you see here is you have F, H, N, etc. So what that means is you're able to press the key next to like open a menu. So if you press H, it opens up a home menu, and you have some more options to do. So for example, if I want to highlight cell B2, I can do Alt H, which opens up home, H, which opens up highlighting, and I can use my arrow keys to, for example, pick this yellow color. And then that'll highlight this selection yellow. So obviously, like if once you get practiced, it's way better than just using your mouse, going to home, clicking this, and clicking that. Using your keyboard is always faster, and it will save you a lot of time as well as let you keep up. Cool. So I guess we'll just go down one by one just so I can show you what these things are. So the first is a selection shortcut. And basically, like normally, you scroll around by moving up, down, left, right, etc. And the shift space is highlight the entire row. You want to try that? And this allows you to, for example, like if I want to highlight the entire row like yellow, I can do Alt H H, and then you go up, and then you click Enter, and that gets you to highlight the entire row yellow. For example, and then like Control Z, which is the undo function, unhighlights it. And for Mac, I think Command Z is usually the shortcut for Control, although there are definitely exceptions. And then Control Y is the redo function, which gets you to re-highlight it. Cool. So then you have Control Space, which is select the entire column. And the arrow key is just like wait. Control Shift Enter. Wait, where? Oh, sorry. Arrow key just means this. Yeah, up down. Yeah. Sorry. Right. Okay. Wait, does the option not work? Oh Lord. I swear you should have an alt, right? Well, let's see. This is from Wall Street Prep. Excel Mac shortcuts. I sent this to you as well, so you can look at it. For Mac, I apologize for Mac. I know nothing about a Mac. This is why I bought a Windows laptop. But yeah, cool. All right, Mac people will figure it out. Cool. So then you have the control space, that's column, and a control arrow key is just, so for example, like this allows you to jump places. So control down here would jump directly to F8, where the next thing appears instead of blank space. And then yeah, so this allows you to go faster instead of having to like press right, up, down, left every single time. And then Control Shift allows you to highlight the selection up to that. Cool. All right, so next we have the formatting shortcuts. And here you have Control 1. And this is like brings up the whole menu for everything. So, and here you want to like navigate through your arrow keys on top. So left, right gets you from number to alignment, etc. And then inside the menu, if you want to scroll inside, you tab, and then that goes into the menu, and then you can go up and down. And then if you tab again, it goes into this. On the other hand, if you notice that like each line has something underlined, for example, in use 1000 separator over here, you can see that U is underlined. So you press Alt U, it jumps to that, and it checks or unchecks, and Alt N goes to how you want to represent negative numbers. Cool. I should have figured out the Mac shortcut before coming to this. I'm sorry. But yeah. Cool. If there's any questions about that, it's like pretty nice, and it will come in handy when we do more modeling later, and I'll remind you of these shortcuts. And then for Alt-HE, and this is to delete any formatting. So if you click Alt-HE, you can see like you can clear all, you clear the formatting, clear the contents, clear comments, etc. So for example, like let's say like I want to clear format. Here you can see that it's bolded and highlighted. So I click Alt-HE, and then clearing formats, if I press F, you can see that the text remains there, but the bold and the highlighting goes away. And then if I want to click Alt-HEA, that deletes everything. So that's like kind of like in general what you want to use for clearing stuff, because sometimes you want to keep what's in there, but you want to clear the formatting. And here you have just a standard copy and paste function. So Control C or Command C, Command V, everyone knows. And then Control R and Control D are more interesting. Specifically, for example, like if you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically, Control R is you copy the formula or wherever it's in the cell. Hey, no problem. We're just going over Excel right now. Just feel free to open up those files I sent you. Cool. So as you can see, Control R just copies whatever is in the first cell towards the right. So if I have this is equal to E plus 1 or E13 plus 1, that's 2. This is that plus 1. If I drag this left or right and Control R, that automatically copies the formula from the left side onto the right side. And this is just a quick way to do things instead of having to do Control C and then Control V for everything else. And essentially, it saves on one keystroke because you could also do Control C on this, and then you do Control V. But like Control R saves a keystroke, which is nice. And similarly, if you want to do Control D is the same thing for down. So we have this, and you have this +1, and you want to drag it down, then you get the same thing where you copy the formula or whatever's in the content for the first cell and you drag it down. And note that this is copying the formula. If you just have a pure number and you do Control D, that's the same thing where you copy and paste whatever is in the first cell down. Cool. That makes sense to everyone? Great.
When I type in like E13, for some reason it's not like highlighting how you're just highlighting. I did like E13 plus 1 and it doesn't.
Did you write equal E13 plus 1? Yeah, so whenever you have a formula, you need to start out with plus, minus, or equal, which is indicating an operator for a formula. Now, which we'll talk about more in formulas later. That was just to illustrate. Cool. Great. So then you have next is like probably one of the more useful ones. So you have OES. So you need for OES you need to copy something first before you hit OES. So if you click OES or if you hit like Control Alt V or Command Alt V for the Mac, I believe. Let's see. Where is Paste Special? All right. So Paste, it's somewhere in here. God damn it. Down this. So it's Control, whatever this is, Command V. I think Mac does have a Control key.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's Alt Command. Okay. But yes. So you can see that. So for example, you have here, right? So this is 4. But like, let's say I want to copy the format of B2. If you do like Control Alt V, or I like the one where it's Alt ES, V or T. So if you copy T, you're copying the formats of cell B2 onto the 4. So I can see now you have 4 highlighted and bolded. So as you can see, you had a value in there, but then you had the format from B2 onto that. If you want to copy the values, for example, V, you copy that. You have selection shortcuts in cell C16 or G16 and from B2, but you have it on the formats. And then you also can copy the formula. So for example, here is E13 plus 1. If I want to copy, like, for example, I want to keep this bolded, right? So if I copy this, Alt ESF, which is a formula, this becomes E14, which is this, plus 1. And that gets you to a bolded 3. Because if you just do Control V, Control C, Control V, for example, this becomes 3, but it's not bolded. So if you want to keep the formatting, but you want to keep the formula, there's several different ways you can do that. And then finally, one of the cooler things is, let's say you have 100, and you want to multiply everything in here by 100. So you can highlight this, Alt ES, and then you can see that there is a multiply function in operation. So if you click M, so that gets you to multiply because M is underlined, you basically multiply all of that by 100 if you copy the 100 up there. Yep. So this is a good way if you want to, for example, like let's say you go on a 10 or a company filing and everything's in millions, but you want it in thousands. Then you can multiply everything by 1,000 to convert from millions to numbers in thousands. Or you want to go back because if someone writes stuff in thousands, but you want to represent your model or your data in millions, then you could basically in one swoop convert everything back to thousands or millions. Cool. And then finally, the grouping and ungrouping. And this is just a way to highlight, this is just a way to group or like hide and unhide cells. So for example, like if I copy these 4 lines and I want to hide them or group them together, I do Control Alt and a right arrow key. Shift Alt and right arrow key. And you can see that adds this. So this allows you to hide or unhide that thing. And if I want to reverse that operation, then going down and Shift Alt left unhides that. Cool. And this is useful, like for example, like if you have quarterly data and then you sum them up to a year, but you only want to show the yearly data, you can hide the quarterly data and still have that be there, and then you can just show the yearly data on your PowerPoint or something. Cool. And then finally with formulas, and this is probably the most important part of this. So if you have so let's say this is 4, and then you have this plus 1, that's 5. So normally if you copy the formula over, that's 6, because the formula itself moves the cell over 1 into F24 from E24. But if here, instead, you lock this, so notice the dollar signs between E and 24, the cell is now locked. So if you copy this formula over, it's still 5, because this is now 4 plus 1. And if we copy it down, it's still 5, because this is 4 plus 1. And this changes if, for example, you have different locks. So, for example, you can see that this is a dollar sign in front of the E and dollar sign in front of 24. So you can also lock just the row. And this means that if I want to copy this down, this is 5. But if I copy this over, it's 6. So this allows you to lock the row. So if you have a formula that you want to apply to the row, but you want the column to be the same, then this sort of locking allows you to do that. And on the other hand, in a similar vein, if this is $E24, you lock the column. So if you go right, this is 5, and you go down, this is 1, because you're adding 1 to E25, which has nothing in it, so Excel treats it as a 0. And this will be way obvious why this is relevant later on when we do a DCF or do comps. But for now, just know that this exists. And then finally, F4 is how you change the locking, which is a quick shortcut. And F1 is terrible, which is why a lot of bankers just take the F1 key off the keyboard. But here, changing F4 allows you to change how it locks. And then there you could play with the formulas that way. Cool. You'll have more practice as you go along.
Where's F2, F1, F4, all of that?
Oh, that should be that's up here.
Right, but mine's fine.
Oh, okay. Right. So the new MacBook Pros are once again terrible for this. There should be a setting where it allows you to put the function keys up there. Yeah. Right. So as you can see, Windows are clearly superior to Macs if you want to do finance. So all of you have a Windows computer, good job. If you ever do finance at work, you'll definitely not have a Mac. They will give you a desktop. Yeah. Right. So it's Macs are great, they're fine. This is school, you're fine. But just know at work, you'll know how to use a Windows. And you also won't have the joy of doing this, where you can track formulas. Yeah. But yes, that's Excel. Anyone have any questions? Cool. I mean, there's several other formulas and functionalities to Excel, but this is the basics you need to get you started in CFC. Great. Cool. So now let's move to PowerPoint. Under heavy requests from every sector director, this is actually yes. Yeah. So basically, so I mean honestly, they look fine to me, so don't worry about it. Yeah, but I guess to be fair, like my PowerPoints aren't that good either. Like I don't think mine are necessarily better than like what you had on last Tuesday, but that's okay. But I guess like in terms of decks, because so for example, this is like the deck we produced when I was a sophomore, in terms of presenting in front of people. So this is like kind of the quality we would expect out of a pitch later on in the semester. So it's fine for the industry update because honestly, just you spend like 10 minutes on it and that's fine. But for pitches where it's this like the core function of the club, we kind of expect something of like around this quality. And basically, as you can see from PowerPoint, since we're like in finance, these decks aren't really meant for presentation, like in front of like large screen. These are kind of like if you ever work at a bank or something, you get like a bunch of PowerPoint slides, you bind them into like a book, and then you show up to a client meeting and show that to the client. Which is why you see that these decks are actually very, very text heavy, because like when you're presenting, you don't read off of it, but like oftentimes they're left over, so when you leave the meeting, people can review the information, and that's when like the text on the book will prove beneficial. So in general, let's see what's a good example. No, not that one. Blah. Right. So normally on a deck, on a slide, there's like 4 quadrants, right? So you should always envision your content into 4 quadrants. So obviously you have the title up top, and then you have like some random like footer stuff at the bottom. But in general, the bulk of your content should either be in quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. And you want each part of it to convey some idea. And in general, you want like some visuals, some graphics. And normally, like photos aren't really like that common, but since we were pitching a video game stock, this is why we kind of included some videos to like photos to get some more context about what we're doing, because pictures are way better than like words in explaining games. But oftentimes, as you can see from above, we have graphs which show like the revenue breakdown. So instead of writing like King Digital is 27%, Activision is 33%, and Blizzard is 40% of like Activision Blizzard's revenue, we show like a graph that paints a visual picture for what in general it looks like to better convey the information. Of course, there's still a lot of text, but anytime you can use a graphic, that's obviously highly encouraged. So now just like some tools to get like PowerPoint sorted, because like how a PowerPoint slide looks obviously takes practice and takes some edits from like both your teammates as from your sector directors. But generally, you want to try to make them look pretty nice and aligned. But like each person's design is different. So similarly with PowerPoint, actually Excel, the Alt key on PowerPoint also gets you places. However, this is generally used a lot less because you will use your mouse a lot more in PowerPoint than in other things. So the first thing you will notice is that, so this top part is called a ribbon, and then this is called your quick access toolbar. So oftentimes your quick access toolbar is on top, but like if you go to PowerPoint, you can customize it. And essentially like if you customize quick access toolbar, you can show here quick access toolbar below the ribbon. And then you basically want to move what you have here away and add these things to it. And you can do this on your own or like ask me if you couldn't find these things. But essentially you can move these things and add it to your quick access toolbar. You don't need to do it right now, but this will save you a lot of time. Cool. So in general, just a couple of things. Right, so basically with this quick access toolbar, it allows you to access commonly used items. Hello. Is that your phone? No problem. Cool, so in general, you notice how there's a separated right there? The 2 things on the left are quick keyboard shortcuts. So Alt-1 gets you to this, and Alt-2 allows you to like get you to that. And then everything to the right of this is like for your mouse. So here I can easily click this, make a text box, and type in it. Or I can make a square, a line, and then for other shapes, I can click in and choose a shape I want. So in general for shapes, normally you have this, right? So you can also easily type text in here. So once you click on it, if you just type, you can have text in there, which is how these things up top which is how the bars up top are generated. And these will be user headers, your graphics, etc. And that's in general for shapes. Oftentimes people don't really use text boxes unless it's in the slide master, which I'll show you all later. But yeah, cool. So that's like how shapes work. You can obviously like increase it, decrease it. And then here you see the shape. If you click on it, you see the shape format tool. So this gives you the height, the width, and other forms of like formatting options. So for example, like shape fill, shape outline. This can also be accessed using shortcuts. So if you click Alt to open a menu, the shape format is JD, so JD. And then like if I type in shape fill, I get that. And I could change the fill color pretty easily. What I do? I can change it green, for example. And this gives you like a quick way to modify your shapes into the color you want. And the reason, also, if you see these things here to the side, these are just color guides. So this dark blue matches with this dark blue. So as you can see, the RGB code, which is some random physics concept, is 03236. So if I want to change the shape fill to dark blue, for example, once I get at this menu, I can click on more fill colors. And then I get to red, green, and blue. So 0, tab, 32, and 96. And that changes the color to dark blue. Cool. And then finally, and this part is like the relatively cooler PowerPoint stuff. So as you can see, like these logos are all very disaligned. But if, let's see, I highlight these two, and control click is to highlight multiple things, and I want to align them. If I do like Alt and then 1, which is to opening my align objects tool, that gets you to like the align tool. So for example, if I want to align them in the middle, I can click on M, align middle, and that makes them a perfectly aligned like logo. And in general, like the reason why I have that on a quick access toolbar is the actual shortcut is Alt JP, and then you have the align tool, which is somewhere on here. So like AA, and then you have to click that. Because you use this so often, doing that is very inefficient. Which is why you want to add it to your quick access toolbar to speed things up. And the other thing is, let's say like I have these all like mixed up, and I want to like align them like on a horizontal. So if I distribute them horizontally, it gets them in perfect increments of each other on the page. Cool. And then finally is so this is my freshman year when I was in this club. As you can see, the club has improved a lot, but those are the slides, some of the slides I've made. So don't feel bad about yourself because I was way worse than you were. And then the final thing about PowerPoint is if you go to View, you have Slide Master. So here is a Slide Master, which means that every single slide on my main deck follows the same formatting, and it's something you can't change. So like, for example, like this slide, right? This is the main Slide Master. So basically every slide will have like this blue bar and some of these footers. So if you go down in this Slide Master of this template, I've added this shape. So let's say like I want to add in a box here for some random reason. If you clear the Slide Master, if you close the Slide Master view and I go to add new slide, you can see that adding this new slide gets me this shape in this middle. And nothing I can do can modify it because it's in my Slide Master. So basically like the Slide Master allows you to have a set template, some branding for like a pitch or project, and that lets your formatting be consistent and makes sure that your slides will align as you click from slide to slide. Cool. Any questions about PowerPoint? Cool. So, I mean, I know like this is like basic tools, but important stuff, especially if you want to make slides that look like good and presentable. Oh, yeah, cool. Cool. Yes.
Would you never recommend like using a template that's like already made?
Well, yes, I would recommend using a template. So when people say templates, they give you like a slide master template. So like, for example, this is a template that like CFC has. So I want to insert new slide. You can see that there's several different options, right? So your template will have those same options. And like, if, for example, if your group has a template and you want to use that, you're given that template and you should modify it. Right. And like, if you ever work for a firm, the firm will have its own branding. So every deck you make will be of that same firm like template. And it definitely saves you a lot of time because you don't have to make your own template. Yeah. Cool. All right. So today we will conclude with some more accounting practice. So if everyone can open up that doc I sent you, the CFC Ed Series 2. All right, so for this, you can follow along if you would like. The answer is on the next tab, so it doesn't really matter if you like type it in yourself. But the idea is just to get you a sense of like how things connect and the logic behind different accounting steps. Cool. So basically in this exercise, I've given you the balance sheet for Mirtha's hot dog truck as of December 31st, 2015. And then there are some instructions for what happened during a year that has taken place. And basically the goal is to create the income statement, balance sheet, and then derive the cash flow statement from the top two. So I know this is complicated, but we will go through this together. All right, great. So the first step is, I should have it up here, so. All right, yes. So first, during 2016, Mirtha's hot dog truck, the first they earned $200,000 in sales, 20,000 of which has yet to be collected, and 40,000 of inventory and 50,000 of non-depreciation amortization SG&A were used up to generate those sales. So cool. So let's break this down. So first, they earned 200,000 in sales. So how do you all think this will affect the income statement? Correct. So 200,000 will go into revenues. Nice. And then it says that 40,000 of inventories were used. So what this means is that because inventories are used in cost of goods sold, that means that this becomes equals 40,000. This is minus 40,000, right? Because cost of goods sold are directly used for generating your revenues. And then the other part is that 50,000 of, so I added this non-DNA because I realized I messed up, but this is important for this problem to work. But just consider this 50,000 SG&A were also used to generate those sales. So here you have minus 50,000 for that. Cool. So then, since you have the net minus 50,000, one other thing to note is that since your COGS, you're using $40,000 of inventory and cost of goods sold, your inventories must also decrease by 40,000 because you used them up in producing your revenues. Is that clear to everyone? So because so you see here like the $40,000 of inventories were used, right?
Oh, yeah.
So therefore you have 40,000 COGS, but because you use up 40,000 inventories, yeah, great. And then the I didn't go in order. Also, that says 20,000 of the sales have yet to be collected. So that means we have to go increase accounts receivable by 20,000 because they have yet to collect $20,000 of the cash. the 20,000 of the sales.
My computer, it's going to show you 2,000, 40,000,
Yeah.
50,000 below that, and for some reason, the number here says 160,000.
Yeah.
Mine says 240.
Oh, do you run a negative?
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry.
I thought it actually.
No, it didn't. Sorry. Yeah. This formatting only makes it yes.
Inventories, should we type it should be hard coded 40,000 or link it to the cost of goods sold?
So this is not. Oh, I would just write. It doesn't matter for this. Normally you wait. So normally I think. So normally you would. Do it. Yeah. So normally you would, but like for this exercise it doesn't matter because it's just seeing like how these steps affect the balance sheet and income statement. But in terms of actual modeling, you should try to link as often as possible. But for this, it doesn't matter. I just wrote minus 40,000. Cool. And then finally, right. So, and then because 20,000 of this has yet to be collected, that means your accounts receivable increases by 20,000. Great. So on to the next step. So the second step is they purchased $60,000 worth of supplies used to make hot dogs. And they have yet to pay the supplier for $15,000 of those supplies. Cool. So first, so the first step is $60,000. Because you're buying $60,000 worth of supplies, that means your inventory, you will add 60,000 onto inventory. Yeah. And like I know there's a lot of cash flows, but we're not. That's for a cash flow statement, and we'll account for those there. So for now, don't worry about cash, and we'll go over how that works. But like just look at the other accounts for now. And then it says here that they have yet to pay the supplier for 15,000 of those supplies, which means that this goes into accounts payable because they have yet to pay the supplier $15,000. So here you would add accounts payable by 15,000, which is down here in current liabilities.
For the inventory one, did you?
Right.
Did you just subtract? I mean, sorry, subtract 60,000, or did you just plug in a new number?
Oh, so the first part is minus 40,000 is them using it for cost of goods sold, and then I added plus 60,000 for when they bought new inventories.
So,
Right. If there is ever following along up to this point. Yep.
Are you going up to that bar at the top and putting in plus whatever amount? Or?
Yeah, I'm just putting it in. So basically how I do that is you could type in a bar, but I kind of do it. So F2, edit in the cell, and then you could modify it with like plus or minus whatever. But yeah, so for this, I am hard coding and just typing in 40,000 into the cell. I think that's sufficient for this exercise. Normally, like you would kind of like do it differently, but that's not the point of this exercise. So yeah. Cool. All right, is everyone following along?
Yeah.
Cool. So then the third step is collected $10,000 from those who still owed the truck money for goods previously sold and delivered. So basically, as you all know, the definition of this is that this is an accounts receivable because we already sold and delivered the goods and services. However, we have not been paid yet. So this is us finally collecting what we did last year. So therefore, this $10,000 represents a decrease in accounts receivable because they are now paying us cash that they owed us. So we will decrease accounts receivable by $10,000. So F20 minus 10,000, and that should get you to 20,000 of accounts receivable. Let me know if you're there. Great. You're right. So on the converse, we paid our suppliers $10,000 for worth of inventory that we still owed money for. So therefore, this represents the opposite end where we owed someone else money, and now we are paying them back for what we previously received but had not paid for. So this will represent a decrease in accounts payable because accounts payable is what we owe other people. Since we're now finally paying them back, we are decreasing our accounts payable. Cool. So accounts payable and minus, take what you have, minus 10,000. And we should have 15,000 of accounts payable. Yeah.
So whenever you click on a box, what are you pressing to be able to alter the formula within the box?
F2. Yeah. If that doesn't work, you probably have press FN lock if that's on your computer.
Oh, F2.
Oh yeah. There should be a function lock. If you find what that is, it's a function lock. F2 versus F2 and right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. At least on my computer you can. It should be. All right. Any questions here? Good. Cool. Great. So that's the formula for that. And that's 15,000. Cool. So this line is so paid down $3,000 in accrued expenses from the previous year, but have yet to pay $5,000 in bonuses earned by employees during 2016. Yes. So hold on, double checking real quick. Okay, right. Okay, so, right. So, for this, I realize this is kind of confusing, but right. So first part is we paid down 3,000 accrued expenses. So again, going back from last week, accrued expenses, things we've accrued, expenses we've accrued, but we have yet to pay for. So for example, like if the typical example on this is like wages or bonuses, if someone has worked for us, but we have not given them their salary yet, that is considered an accrued expense. Until we pay them, we must have a liability on our balance sheet that is accrued expenses. So because the first part says we paid down $3,000 in accrued expenses, this is minus 3,000. Nice. Great. So this is C30 minus 3,000, which gets us 0. And the second part is we have yet to pay for $5,000 in bonuses owed to our employees. So again, since that is a accrued expense because our employee has earned $5,000 of bonus, but we have yet to pay our employee that. So therefore, that is an increase in accrued expenses. So therefore, the accrued expenses formula for this year is now this. which should end in 5,000. Cool. Excellent. So now that checks off that line. And then here is what we have for prepaid insurance. Again, prepaid expenses or prepaid insurance is things that we've prepaid for, but the service has yet to be delivered to us. So this is considered an asset because we paid for X thing that we can use to run our business. That X thing has not been delivered to us yet, but we've paid for it. So it counts as an asset on the balance sheet. So because the first part says we used up $20,000 of insurance that covered 2016, we will subtract out 20,000. But the second part of this line said we purchased 20,000's worth of insurance for the next year. So because that insurance has not been offered to us yet, has not covered us yet, that is considered an increase in prepaid insurance. So I realize this is just netting out, but you can still see it's still minus 20,000 plus 20,000 should get you to still 20,000 because we started with 20,000. Cool. Yes.
So in the last bullet, when you look at accruing, we paid down accruing expenses. Cash like not changed?
Cash will change. Sorry, pay down current expenses.
Yeah, when you pay expenses,
So it doesn't stay the same, but we will calculate that part when we do the cash flow statement. Right. So again, this is like the indirect method versus direct method. This exercise kind of lends itself more towards the direct method, but normally in accounting people use the indirect method where you start with net income and then you adjust it. But we will figure out the cash change with the income and balance sheet and generate the cash flow statement from there. Cool. So therefore, you have 20,000, and then great. So then the next line is your D&A line. We had $10,000 in depreciation to the stove, and then $5,000 in amortization of customer lists. So customer lists are basically like we have a list that we can tap into and ask for and like market to, which is why they have intangible value to us, which is why like they are intangible assets and thus are amortized. So basically, first, the $10,000 in depreciation to the stove, that is an expense on the cost of goods sold because the stove is involved in direct production of your food. So therefore, it's 40,000 minus 10,000, and that gets you to minus 50,000 in cost of goods sold. And also, since it's a piece of equipment, you also decrease your property, plant, equipment by $10,000 as well, because your asset is depreciated, so therefore it's worth less. And then the second part of this is your $5,000 in customer lists. So that is part of SG&A because you're trying to sell things to customers. So that will be minus 5,000 from SG&A, and then your intangible assets will decrease by 5,000. So this is where you should end up after that line. Everyone good? Great. So after that, now us replenishing our capital goods. So basically we spent $5,000 buying a cash register, and then $20,000 buying rights to a special sauce. So here what this means is, so first you have the $5,000, and again we'll be computing cash later, but since we spent $5,000 on a cash register, that means our PP&E has increased by $5,000. And then since we bought a special sauce, which is basically a patent, the rights to a special sauce, that means our intangible assets has increased by $20,000. Cool. All right, and then the next line, this is relatively self-explanatory. We paid interest expense of $3,000, and we gained $500 of interest income. So this just affects your subsequent lines on your balance sheet. On your income statement. And then, and keep in mind that interest expense is minus $3,000. And we took out $10,000 in additional loans. So this means that the debt will increase by $10,000. And finally, debt will increase by $10,000. And then finally, we issued $20,000 worth of stock at the beginning of the year. And we'll calculate this later. And then we have $5,000 worth of dividends. So ignore the second part for now. That'll be used for the cash flow statement. But because we issued $20,000 more worth of equity, we have to increase common stock by $20,000. Check. Okay. All right. Things look right. Nice. Oh yeah, dividends we will not use for now. That will be for the cash flow statement. Great. So now to answer, so this is your final balance sheet. Does everyone have this balance sheet? As you can see, the total assets and total liabilities and shareholders' equity do not equal, but that is okay for now. Cool. So now to answer Aramis's question, what do we do about all the cash? So here we have the indirect method of calculating the cash flow. So basically, we're going to use the income statement and the balance sheet to get our statement of cash flows. So as you can see, net income is just net income. So you basically want to set this equal to the net income up here, which is $92,500. Cool. And then we have our depreciation and amortization. So if you look up here to the instructions, you can see that we experienced $10,000 in depreciation and $5,000 in amortization. So because we experienced that, we are adding that back now because a non-cash expense. So therefore, we add $10,000 plus $5,000 for $15,000. Yeah. Cool. Everyone up to there? Great. So now we go to the working capital piece of the cash flow statement. So as you can see, we have accounts receivable, inventories, and prepaid insurance. So what these things represent is that they are our operating assets. So whenever you increase in an asset, you experience a cash outflow. So for example, we bought inventory and that increased our inventory, but where did the money come from to buy our inventory? That came out of cash. So we will subtract out that from cash. So for example, for accounts receivable, on a similar vein, if we received money, which is a decrease in accounts receivable, then we obviously got cash, and therefore on a converse, if our accounts receivable increased, it's considered use of cash. So because we're subtracting out an increase in accounts receivable or adding a decrease in accounts receivable, so we are subtracting out essentially the change in accounts receivable. So if you go to here, 20,000 minus 10,000, that is the formula for this, because we're subtracting out the change from last year's accounts receivable to this year's accounts receivable. So it's minus parentheses F20 minus C20. And now, because we're lazy, this is when all that Excel knowledge comes in handy. Because if you realize, accounts receivable, inventories, and prepaid insurance are in the same 3 lines, like right next to each other. So you could just drag this down too, do Control D, and there we go. We have the formula for receivable, inventories, and prepaid insurance. And the same logic for why this one was the same, so there's not really need to go over it. So we just highlight the accounts receivable, drag it down, Command D. Oh, is it Control? Or is it? Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. Right. So on the converse of the current liabilities, this is just if there's an actual increase in accounts payable, then it represents an inflow of cash, and if there's a decrease, it represents an outflow. So this is just this minus this. Correct. Yeah. So as you can see, this is F29 minus C29, which is 15,000 minus 10,000. And that represents an increase in cash. Cool. All good? So similar logic, just drag it down. And there we go. That is your, oh yeah, so unearned revenue did not get affected, so that's 0. And then now, since, because part of the reason why I have the negative, now we just want to sum everything up. So it's, and this colon is just the signal for F46 all the way down to F53, so that's a range. Right. Yeah. Right, so if you like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we should do some, yeah. Yeah, cool. Nice. Cool, everyone good with that? Cool, so that is it for the balance sheet manipulation. So for CapEx, again, it says that we spent $5,000 buying a cash register and $20,000 buying the rights to a special sauce. So cash register is a capex. So therefore you have minus $5,000 because you're buying a capital good, because you're buying cash register. And similarly for purchases of intangible assets, you spent $20,000 buying a customer list, or sorry, buying a right to a special sauce. So that is once again $20,000 in purchase of intangible assets. And then you want to, oh yeah, one other cool trick is Alt and then the plus key is auto sum. I don't know what it is for Mac. I'm sure it exists, but you can auto sum everything up there, and then that gets you negative 25,000. If you can't do if you don't know the shortcut, just sum it up. Fine. Cool. All right. So you can see that cash from investing activity is 25,000. So then we have dividends. So if you know from dividends, this is where it comes in. You paid $5,000 of dividends. So this represents a cash outflow out of the business because you're returning cash to your investors. So here it will be minus 5,000. That pretty clear to everyone? Cool. And then finally, well, not finally, additions in the long-term debt. We see we took out $10,000 in additional loans. So to answer Aramis's question again, yes, this affects cash. As you can see, we raised $10,000 in the balance sheet for long-term loan debt, but the converse of that, we also must raise cash. So you can see here that because we took out $10,000 in loans, we got $10,000 in cash. And that gets you 10,000. And then reduction in long-term debt, there was nothing in the instructions that said we paid out any debt, so that's 0. And proceeds from stock issuances. So that is, again, we issued $20,000 worth of common stock. So in exchange for getting a share of our company, we gave an investor the investor paid us $20,000. So once again, that is an increase in $20,000. And then we had 0 repurchases of shares. And then we sum that up. Cool. That makes sense so far to everyone? So now we have net change in cash. Not small. You sum up them. Yeah. All right, is this the actual line? Did I reproduce what I did? Okay, good. I have reproduced what I did before. Okay. So yeah, so this is just summing up the 3. Pretty clear. And the commas just represent breaks. The colon is a continuous range. Great. So now how do we all link this together? So first thing to realize is, we actually forgot a step. So this dividend is, we paid out $5,000 worth of dividends. So, oh. Did you have a question? Cool. Great. So first, we should go back to the retained earnings section. So if you all know, the two things that affect retained earnings is net income increases your retained earnings, and then dividends decrease your retained earnings. Therefore, you need to add your net income to your retained earnings and subtract out your dividends from the retained earnings. So here we calculate income from the income statement. So we add F14, which is net income, and then we subtract out 5,000, which was our dividends. So that is up here. And that gets you to that. That number looks right, thank God. Cool. So then you have your net change in cash, which is 84,500. So where does this get reflected? this gets reflected in the balance sheet. So as you can see, I already inputted the previous year's cash, right? So this is the previous year's cash plus the net change in cash for this year, which gets you, plus net change in cash for this year. So F69 and plus C19. Cool. That good? And then you have 54,500 in total liabilities and shareholders' equity, and 554,500 in assets, which means your balance sheet balances, the sky is not falling, and what's your question, Annabelle? Wait, what do you have?
I have adding F14 and minus 5,000.
Right, so I think you're forgetting, so SG&A should be because the cheated some of the customers, so that counts as cool. So that's all for today. The balance sheet balances. We can all go home now. And basically, your homework, or not homework, your deliverable for next war. So there's no Ed Series next week because we have fall break, going to our fall break. And basically, I want you to do the same thing all over again. And feel free to work together, ask me questions, and that'll be for next time. Yes. Yeah. It's not due next week. Next week is break. Go enjoy your break. Fall break is one of the best times of the year before prelims hit you. Not that although there's prelims now, but still. Oh, just Stitch. Who cares? Yeah. Oh shit, how do I stop this recording? What did it say? Control Shift Enter? Or did it stop recording and it never recorded? Yikes. You're done. You can leave now.
Thank you.
Uh-oh. Oh, Control End.